And we back with another one, y'all. Look, that Big U case is really, really heating up, man. We got Loose Cannon still locked up, Brick Baby still locked up. I've been doing a little digging, man. We've been learning a whole lot about Big U, man. Dude is a trip, man. I mean, he got a hell of a record. All this talking from this podcast going on, but been doing a little extra digging for y'all. So let's get right off into this clip. Cut all the talking. Let's go. Criminal lawyer on deck.
Was doing was illegal. You know, I mean, and it's total self-snitching. And every one of these videos, every one of these Instagram posts, every one of these, you know, you gotta check in or it's gonna get hot, you know, all that is gonna bite him in the
Bruce Rivers, he's the criminal lawyer. Bruce Rivers, he's the criminal lawyer. Bruce Rivers, he's the criminal lawyer. And what he do? And it's gonna react to all the self-snitching.
Hi, this is Bruce Rivers. Welcome to another fun-filled episode of Criminal Lawyer Reacts. I'm Bruce Rivers, your very own board-certified criminal defense lawyer. Today, we are reacting to the Rolling 60s indictment in LA. Rolling 60s is a gang out in gang. It's a club. It's not a gang. It is a bunch of people who are getting indicted for RICO in the LA area. And before we get to that, though, first of all, you know, I can't remember who gave me this, but somebody gave me, I think her card is here. Mary W. Mary, you crocheted these nice coasters for me. Thank you.
All right, Bruce, we're going to skip past all this talking. We ain't come for all that, bro. We're going to get right into the Big U segment, though.
And Big U is one of the figures in the industry who came directly from the street, according to Boss Valtown. But he is from the Arlington and Slauson, which is known as the 60s territory. The Arlington gang was led by Big U's cousin, Chili Capone. And as time went on, Arlington guys would call themselves Rolling 60s as they were from the same area. Now, here's the thing. Big U and Chili did not start the gang. They were like the second generation. These are not people to mess with, you know, and they all have, you know, a teardrop, not necessarily a teardrop, but they have earned one anyway. You know what that means. And Big U, who's like their main guy, claims not to have any directly say he didn't directly join the 60s, but that the affiliation was a natural one, as he was an AG member, Arlington gang member, and he built his reputation on being an excellent fighter, learning martial arts, growing up, and possessing natural leadership skills. And when Chili Capone died, you know, they all die young, right? He became the next leader of the AGs, or Arlington gang. And as the years went on, that just kind of morphed into the Rolling 60s. So they've indicted about 20 guys. You know, I'm doing one right now where they've indicted well over 45 guys, and they're continuing to indict people. They're pulling people out of prison who are serving 30-year sentence on a homicide to indict them on a murder case, so they never get out. I'm telling you, this is not. If you're sitting there thinking, hey, it's a cool idea to be in a gang, or if you're thinking, I have to do this, think again, because this is happening all over the country. It happened in Atlanta, and we know what happened there. The prosecutor fucked that case up royally, and Young Thug had just amazing lawyers, and they didn't give up, which is just amazing. As the crack epidemic came in, the focus shifted to getting money, which brought more enemies meant more firearms, and the gangs now had unlimited access. Big U would also rob dealers, and after attempting to rob and uncover an officer who posed as a dealer, he was sent to prison for 23 years, serving only 12 before going to prison. Big U managed to corrupt in 1990, who would go on to sign with Death Row Records after Big U went to prison. All these guys go to prison. You're in a gang, guess what? You're going to prison or you're going to die. One of the two. And it doesn't matter how long and usually it's either for large drug crimes, and now it's RICO, which they can take any little thing and say it was in furtherance of the conspiracy. So what's a conspiracy? You remember what we said. It's an agreement between two or more people and an act to do a criminal act, and then an act in furtherance of that conspiracy. They have a motto in the Rolling 60s, and the motto is, you not 60s until you smoke one. You know what that means? To smoke on your ops. We've talked about that. Imagine wanting to be part of an organization that has a motto basically saying you ain't a real one unless you backdoor and kill your brother. Example, what happened to Nipsey Hussle and, Sandman Niggas. The amount of fame and clout Nipsey brought to them only for a tweaked out J-Cat from his hood to kill him. Oh, that's from the Boy Mess, whoever that is. And some of this stuff is just put together by our team here, and we're really trying to highlight, and what I'm trying to do is highlight the dangers of being in a gang and the dangers of not building a good life. It might seem like a good idea at the time because you might be intimidated, you might have this, you might have that, and you might not have a choice. You might think you don't have a choice. Find a mentor. If you're 10 years old, you got to have somebody that's a strong. If you're a 10-year-old black kid in the hood, in the inner city, if you're, whether it's Chicago, LA, Minneapolis, or New York, Detroit, Houston, Dallas, Jacksonville, Florida. I mean, there's over 50 unsolved homicides in the last 5 years. And it's probably grown since then because that's an old statistic. But if you're a 10, 12, 13-year-old kid, find somebody close to you, that's not in the shit. That's not, somebody that's solid. Because there are men out there, just solid men. And gravitate towards them every day. Every day build with that. Listen to your mother. Listen to your auntie. Listen to your sisters. Because they're not in that shit. And if they are, make other plans. I hate to sound like an old fucking white dude who doesn't know what he's talking about, but I see this every day. I see the aftermath of this shit because I'm a criminal defense lawyer. So I know what the fuck I'm talking about. I'm not just some, Mr. Rogers dude putting on his fucking sneakers and his cardigan, sitting by my fake train and, trying to talk about shit I don't know anything about. So let's watch the press conference. And this is what I want you guys to take note of. They're mining social media to get you indicted.
Proven otherwise. Let me talk a little bit about Mr. Henley and the street gang here. As I said, Mr. Henley is a widely known leader within the Rollin 60s. He rose to prominence in that gang decades ago, and he has since been a fixture on the internet, talk shows, and podcasts. All things that law enforcement have looked at closely as part of this investigation.
Oh, gee. What did I tell you? He's on podcasts. He's, I like the fame. What did the mob fucking hate more than anything else? Notoriety, attention. They wanted everything quiet. Why do you think John Gotti, wound up where he was? Remember, he was the Dapper Don? It's no different than these guys. And why is that? They wanted it quiet because they didn't want to fucking make noise because the empty barrel is the loudest one.
He has maintained the image of an entertainment industry entrepreneur running a music label and of somebody who gives back to the community here in Los Angeles, funding a South LA-based charity, developing options, which purports to help at youth risk escape gang life and escape the perils of gangs in high crime areas. The facts.
Well, don't think for 1 minute that won't be part of the defense strategy.
The facts alleged in the complaint paint a very different picture. It is one of a murderer, a thief, a liar, and a cheat, and the criminals that enabled him. For example, Mr. Henley engaged in a murder of a musician signed to his label in 2021 and dumped the victim's body in Las Vegas off of the I-15 freeway. He then attempted to evade and obstruct the investigation into the murder, including ordering witnesses not to speak with law enforcement. Henley's criminal enterprise also engaged in other crimes, including transporting prostitutes across state lines, extorting strip clubs, marijuana dispensaries, and other businesses, and fraudulently applying for COVID loans.
So this sounds just like organized crime, does it not? That's how they're being treated.
In the form of a business relief loan. On that application, Mr. Henley falsely stated that his music label, Unique Music, operated at a $200,000 profit in 2019 and was entitled to government assistance, despite the reality that the company had operated at a loss and was ineligible for such relief. Finally, Mr. Henley is accused of embezzling.
Some of those document crimes are so easy to prove for the government, but the bigger picture is that they are part of an organization, and that is how the RICO part of it plays into it. And so it's an overt act in furtherance of a conspiracy.
Embezzling donations made by celebrities, professional athletes, and businesses to his charity, Developing Options, which, as I said, purports to give South LA at-risk youth alternatives to gang violence, drugs, and other criminal activity.
So if you have a charity like Donald Trump did and other people, you can't just take that, money and use it for your own purposes, and you ever hear that show, or that Cars for Kids, 187, whatever the fuck that is. Remember that?
1877 Cars for Kids. KARS Cars for Kids.
I mean, I think that is just a total scam. I could be wrong, and that's just my opinion. I don't have anything to back it up, but it sounds like bullshit. I mean, they have, what do they have? They have got ads nationally, and you hear that ad all the time. Who believes that's just for kids? Nobody does. Stealing from their own charity to do whatever, and then doing other things that are supposedly for and all of a sudden you're looking at your credibility when you get on the stand. It doesn't fly.
Henley used this charity as a front. He used it to conceal his fraudulent activities, his criminal enterprises activities from and evade detection from law enforcement. If convicted on the racketeering conspiracy, he and his co-conspirators face approximately a 20-year federal prison sentence. I want to thank our federal law enforcement partners, our state law enforcement partners who brought about the result here today. The Los Angeles Metropolitan Gang Task Force from the FBI. It's comprised of FBI agents, LAPD officers, IRS criminal investigation, the U.S. Department of Justice Inspector General's Office, Los Angeles Police Department, the North Las Vegas Police Department. This case is a great example of state and federal law enforcement working together to address harm from a criminal enterprise. I also want to thank our...
You hear all the organizations involved in this case? You get a lawyer involved. First of all, I guarantee these guys don't have a lot of money. I mean, some might have a little bit of money, but certainly not anywhere near the resources that the federal government has. That's for damn sure. And not only that, you don't have the resources that all these different agencies have specializations within their own departments, like the IRS, like the Postal Service, like the Gang Strike Force, like the U.S. Attorney's Office and the District Attorney's Office. So if you look at Operation Drawdown, you've got 19 there, and we're going to black out their names because I just don't think it's fair to plaster that shit all over the place when you haven't been convicted of anything yet. But look at the people up there. You got the IRS, you got the LAPD, you got the U.S. Attorney's Office, you've got Department of Justice. You've got all these different logos. Now, I'm going to read you from the indictment. In February 2021, FBI Los Angeles Metropolitan Task Force on Violent Gangs launched an investigation into Henley's criminal enterprise, the Big U Enterprise, and its association with the Rolling 60s neighborhood Crips street gang, the Rolling 60s, which the Los Angeles Metro Task Force Against Violent Gangs, began investigating in August of 2020. The Big U Enterprise is a mafia-like organization that utilizes Henley's stature and long-standing association with the Rolling 60s and other street gangs to intimidate businesses and individuals in Los Angeles. The Big U Enterprise is led by Henley. You just heard about Henley. Henley is a self-admitted member and original gangster, or OG, of the Rolling 60s, a violent criminal street gang with associated sets in several other states. Henley is widely regarded as a leader within the Rolling 60s. Now, Eugene Henley, known as Big U, aka Unk, aka Draws, aka Hannibal, aka Hannibal Muhammad, aka Anybody Killer, aka Dave Austin, aka anyway, so many aliases, right?
AKA get your ass locked up. AKA your ass is cooked. Might as well add that to the list too.
I mean, when they start reading that shit in open court, it doesn't look good for you, aka Bear Claw. For a violation of 18 U.S. Code Section 1962D, racketeering, influence, and corrupt organizations, conspiracies. And what they're doing now is they're treating them like organized crime. It makes it easier to prove and to get them off the street. And I guarantee you, some of these guys are probably already in prison. How do they build a case like this? Well, how do you think? Two ways: snitching and self-snitching. So the sources to build the case include confidential human sources, surreptitious recordings, in other words, wiretapping, including Title III wiretaps, search warrants for social media, iCloud and Google accounts, financial records from both individuals and companies and organizations, toll records showing communications between conspirators, victims, and Big U Enterprise members and associates, cell site location information from numerous phones, including Henley's, these guys, City of Los Angeles records, public filings, and other publicly available information, and interviews of witnesses and victims. The investigation employed various additional investigative techniques, including surveillance, vehicle tracking, poll cameras, recording devices, interaction with confidential sources, and information gleaned through undercover purchases of firearms and narcotics. So they're going to have video and audio of transactions. Oh, here's some guns. Guess what happens with a gun? It's a 5-year mandatory minimum on top of whatever the underlying conviction is. It's called 924C. And the issue with this is this is going to be a document intensive case and a discovery intensive case. It's not going to just be talking, it's not going to just be witnesses, but they're going to have plenty of those too. So just when you think your brother next to you is your friend, all of a sudden he shows up on the witness stand because he's fucked if he doesn't. So the United States District for the Central District of California authorized multiple Title III wire and electronic interception orders for telephones being used by certain subjects of the investigation, including Henley and some of these other guys. The court also authorized interception of audio and visual nonverbal conduct via closed circuit TV through installation of video and audio bugs in a location. So what does that tell you? I mean, remember what got John Gotti? There was a surreptitious recordings that they had the social club. Well, they went up above the social club that they had, and they were hanging out in this woman's apartment, and they put the recording devices in that apartment, and John Gotti is heard on the recording wanting to order a hit on somebody. So let me tell you something about the federal government.
Let me tell you something about the federal government too. Big U them got all kind of recordings on himself. You see what that hat right there say? On Bruce desk right here. Stop self snitching. I might have to get me one of these hats. He's pretty neat. Stop self snitching. They on the podcast running their mouth like water holes and water fountains. I don't think they're gonna get it until their ass get locked up.
The federal government is patient.
Very patient.
Motivated and competent. We're talking about, probably a 5-year investigation. No Jumper, which we were on No Jumper, or I was on, Michael and I were on No Jumper a while back. They released a statement. In addition to DJ Vlad also expressed shock at the allegations against Big U, which he denied. In fact, Vlad claimed that Henley alleged that he was never part of the Rolling 60s neighborhood Crips gang at the center of the RICO case. He also suggested that snitches and the spread of incriminating evidence on social media is what possibly led to this, not any specific media coverage. And here's the thing, the media doesn't cover this shit at all. I don't ever hear anything about this. All these statements line up with Adam 22's response to similar accusations claiming that No Jumper had nothing to do with the case. The outlet's name reportedly appeared various times in the indictment due to brickbaby's previous work with them. So this is Adam 22. I'm not seeing anything that says anything. Let's see. I'm not seeing anything that says anything about stuff he did in the last 2 years since he's been fucking with us. Adam 22 said of brickbaby. I do employ people from the streets. People from the streets sometimes get caught up in federal RICO indictments or whatever the fuck this shit is. We're going to be documenting the whole thing, helping them along the way. Anybody acting like this is because of No Jumper. No Jumper is the antidote. So there you go with that. So what is the responsibility of media outlets when it comes to figures like Big U manufacturing and air of intimidation in the Rolling 60s? If these media outlets employ people from the gangs that are at risk, well, what is the responsibility? You know, I mean, one of the things, you know, if somebody comes on your program and they release information, or if they have their own podcast, anything they say is fair game. It's statements of a party opponent, so it comes into evidence. And here's why it's important when you see the pervasive nature of what these guys are doing. They ran a thing called a check-in, and this is in the indictment. Henley and the Big U Enterprise are widely known for requiring what's called a check-in for out-of-town entertainers or gang members in Los Angeles. So if you have a big enough organization, the Rolling 60s was decent size, and you are intimidating people, like anybody that's coming into town, as Henley described in the docuseries, if I don't answer the phone, it can be death for someone else. Everywhere there's someone like me. You can't put a monetary value on his touch in hip-hop. After more than 3 decades as Rolling 60s members and several years managing famous hip-hop artists, Henley was widely regarded as an original gangster, or OG. In the docuseries, record producer Andre Young, aka Dr. Dre, explained that it's very helpful to have an OG who can clear the streets with.
Let me tell you, Big U ass is cooked. Cooked. Sweetie, you cooked.
This operating environment. Henley instituted the concept of the check-in when hip-hop artists and other celebrities visit Los Angeles. The local street representative of said city to pay a tax or a fee for permission to both to move about freely and to have an event or conduct business in that other city without the risk of harassment. Or, I mean, doesn't it sound just like the fucking mafia? It sounds just like it if it's happening. Keep in mind, they deserve the presumption of innocence. Now, all we're doing is just reporting on what the indictment says. We're not putting a comment on the guilt or innocence of any particular person. So let's continue. While Henley and other supporters attempt to persuade the public that the check-in provides safety and security for those who do so, as set forth herein, Henley and Big U Enterprise also manufacture the very danger they purport to protect. In other words, you don't pay the tax, you're going to pay the price. So let's just continue a little bit more. And I know I'm kind of reading a lot here, but it's kind of important so you get a flavor of what they're talking about. Henley also provided examples of individuals who do not check in with him until it's too late, such as the rap artist Tequan Terrell Bowman, aka Quando Rondo, when Henley discussed in another interview who was later targeted in a murder for hire plot where his associate was killed. When defending this practice
Now, what he reading right here is when Quando cousin got shot out there in Cali. Big U once again snitching on himself.
interviews, Henley had in interviews. What is that? That's self-fucking snitching. When defending this practice in interviews, Henley has stated that it is no different than when a Learjet flies over the United States airspace. They want to know who you are. You're not a fucking government organization, baby. I mean, you're just not. Henley said his practice is no different, which I believe indicates that he purports to own and control Los Angeles through the Big U Enterprise. So he said, now Henley had his own fucking podcast called the Checkin. So you're not so there's no such thing as Checkin. Let's talk about your podcast called the Checkin. The opening theme: when you hop off the plane, check in. Penthouse suite, check in. when your feet hit the street, check in. Because if you're not, shit get hot, you better check in. And who said that? This is the beginning of his podcast.
When you hop off the plane, check in. Penthouse suite, check in. When your feet hit the street, check in. Cause if not, shit get hot, you better check it in.
Welcome to the West Side. Checking
Look at
in.
the lawyer how he was nodding his head.
Welcome to the West Side. Checking in. The indictment describes an incident involving rappers Wiz Khalifa, T.I. Harris, and other artists who were booked to appear in Los Angeles nightclubs, right? And Henley demanded 30 grand cash from the promoter plus 30% of the proceeds at the fucking door. The rappers were no-shows, but Henley demanded the money anyway. And so, I mean, this is just your typical mafia shakedown. I mean, it's they didn't invent this. The Italians did it a long time ago. Henley reportedly said that they were going to be 5,600 in his motherfucker, and that's going to be pulling up. And if we got to tear the motherfucker up, we're going to tear it up. So be ready for that. Be ready for that. Bring me the money. So when the rappers didn't show up, Henley and his associates took the promoter into the back room of the club where they were paid 30 grand. 30 grand for nothing. According to a cooperating witness, aka a snitch, AB and his associates fixed the dice game and cheated NBA players out of millions of dollars using teased dice.
We're going to pause right there. We're going to have a part 2, y'all. That way I don't bore y'all too much with had a video too long, but man, oh man. Big U was in some hot water, y'all. Him and whoever was hanging around him and this no jumper stuff or his check-in podcast, they asses cooked. They cooked. They all self-snitched on themselves. It ain't nobody fault but theirs. So like, comment, subscribe, and share. And there will be a part 2 with the criminal lawyer. Once again, just keeping y'all up to date on everything, man. Big U was a hell of a case, boy. They built a hell of a case on him. So yeah, man, hey, like, comment, subscribe, share. And I'll get back with y'all after these messages. We'll be right back.